It is Retro Gaming Night here on Legendary Tactics, and we're going to learn how to play War at Sea, the Avalon Hill classic from 1976. Please join us on Legendary Tactics. So we're going to zip through the rules here. It's not a difficult game to learn and to play. It's meant more as a military game rather than a hardcore simulation.
Right away, I'm noticing that there are a lot of stacks on the countries.
Yes, there's a lot. It's a lot of, I'm sure there are lots of, there's going to be a lot of casualties like there was in our game of Waterloo.
Waterloo had a similar kind of vibe to it, yes.
Where we had stacks and stacks of counters that had disappeared. So, yes.
Nato, can you just run through real quick what each of the three numbers on the ships mean?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, the concept, basically it's representing the theoretical war at sea that may have happened historically between Nazi Germany and the Allied forces in World War II.
Okay.
And so we're going to be using different ships. It's just going to be a battle for the seas around Europe.
And I noticed they labeled all the ships too.
Yes, yeah, and the print on my screen is a little bit blurry, but luckily when you hover your mouse over the, over
it does pop
ship,
the name of the ship up there, so you can see it clearer. Yeah.
Yes. So, the way the ships work, they've got three numbers on them. Okay. The first number. So if we look at the Scharnhorst, the first is their attack factor. Okay. That's the number of dice that they roll, basically. The 5 here is the defense factor. Think of them like hit points if you've played any Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. That's how much damage it can take before it's sunk. And then the last number is speed, which comes into play whenever you're trying to disengage from a battle. If it's going particularly poorly, it helps if you have fast ships that can do that.
Okay, right. Zip you out of there.
So, yeah. And basically, the dark blue ships are the German Navy. Then we've got the Italian Navy here in the Mediterranean. And the Allied ships are all green. And the American ships are indicated with an A on their counter. So if you look at the Texas.
Oh, right. Yes. Okay.
And there are Russian ships which have an R.
Okay.
Okay.
And the Germans have the U-boats as well, right?
Yep, we have land-based aircraft, and the Germans also have U-boats. And U-boats, if you'll notice, have a star beside their,
their speed factor.
In their speed factor. Basically, the U-boats can just pick up and move anywhere on the board, so they're not restricted at all as far as being far away from port. You can pick up a U-boat and move them all the way to the Mediterranean if you want to, and attack there if it suits you.
Oh, okay.
And you'll notice that they have one attack factor, and that is just a 1 die roll, but 0 defense. If they get hit, they get hit.
They're done.
So they're done. Yes. Other things on the map, you can see there's some things like the Russian port and Leningrad port are they come into play between certain turns. The USA is up here as well. They've got their 6 ships ready to rock as soon as they can enter the war. And
now you mentioned the planes real quick.
Yes, the planes are meant for, they're called land-based. They're for land-based airstrikes, and they can be used on ports, on enemy ports.
Okay.
So the green ports are under the Allied control. So Malta is another port for me, this tiny island here, and the red ports are the Axis.
Yep.
France can be used as a port from turns 2 to 6 only. So not at the beginning, but after beginning turn 2, it can be used.
Okay.
And the reason why there's all these ships moving up into Norway is the German space and Norwegian space are considered the same for this.
Yes. Okay.
Purpose.
Now, what about the actual sea squares?
Yep. So the sea squares are, they are labeled, North Atlantic Ocean, and they say where each ship will return based on it, just as a reminder. The you'll see it's got a point value. So Axis 3, Allies 1. So that is the value that that space has if the Axis controls it or if the Allies control it.
Okay.
See, there's a little thing here in the middle, the POC chart.
Yeah.
That's like
is it points of control? Yeah.
Yeah. And so whoever has the control of those
those squares.
it's basically, yeah. So if the Allies control the North Atlantic Ocean, they get 1 POC, right?
Okay.
If the Axis then control the South Atlantic, then it swings back this way.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay. And basically the winner is whoever has the most points of control.
Is it 10? Is it the first to 10?
No, it's not first to 10. 10 is as high as it goes. So if for whatever reason one side's really dominating the other, any excess points are lost in the
oh wow.
in the exchange. But it's all about control in the way that whenever you have ships that share a space, you battle it out until one side either sinks the other or retreats.
Okay.
Basically, it's a battle to the death, more or less.
And how, is it the last man standing in this kind of game, or?
Well, I mean, in a way, I mean the the way that you win is by having the most points. And I guess if you happen to have like 1 or 2 or 3 more ships, like let's say you sunk everything else, it might might come down to that. But and I'm sure it is a bit of a war of attrition in this game as well.
Okay.
But basically that's the idea. So. As far as that goes, and everyone, so the Italians, when you're setting up the game, the Italians start from the Italian port. The German ships start from the German and Norwegian port, and the Allies split their forces between England and Malta. And then there's other ships that will enter as reinforcements. Reinforcements always come in your home base. So
okay.
Even if I control Malta, I can't start a reinforcement from there. Okay. So the way that the way the turns run is pretty quick. So you place your reinforcements for the turn if you have any, and then the Allied player moves the ships and repairs damaged ships. Then the Axis player moves their ships, places U-boats, and repairs their ships. And at that point, you place your land-based airstrike markers simultaneously, and then you just resolve combat, one sea area at a time. If there are submarines, the submarines, so like if the submarines goes here, the Allies get 1 shot to try and sink the submarines. The way they do that is they add up they get 1 die roll per ship. They get 3 if there's a convoy in the space, and they get a 3 dice as well if they have an aircraft carrier in that space. That's basically representing the fact that aircraft carriers have planes that can surveil. They can fly overhead and spot the subs. And the convoys presumably have destroyers, which were good at anti-submarine warfare. So that's what that's kind of reflecting.
Now, how do you know if you've made a hit or not?
Well, I'll just get to that in 1 second.
Sure.
So once you have once you do your anti-submarine warfare, then the U-boats get to shoot. So they get like a sneak attack and can potentially damage or disable enemy ships. Then you have the targets for the air attacks. Then those ones happen, and then it's the surface vessels.
Okay.
And they battle it out. And every hit in those sea battles is considered to be simultaneous. So, kind of like Axis and Allies. If you take 2 hits, it's like, okay, well, you remember that, but then then you get to fire back at full strength. Right.
Right.
And it keeps on going until one side is either sunk, disabled, or withdrawn without pursuit.
Oh, I see.
And and then you add up the POCs, and then we play 8 turns, and whoever has the most POCs at that point wins the game.
Okay.
Yeah, battles are really simple. So as I said, the combat factor, the attack factor, I should say. So the Lutzow gets 2 die. So they would, this ship would roll, 2 die here.
Yeah.
If you roll a 5, so it's kind of like Waterloo in that you designate who you're attacking. So let's say the Lutzow says, "Oh, I'm going to attack this guy."
Okay.
And so you roll the dice. If you get a 5, that is a disabled ship, and that has to go back once it's shot its return fire. Then it has to go back to
port,
a neighboring port. Okay, and it's out of the battle. Now, there's no lasting damage with disabled. It gets the disabled marker gets removed right away, but it's just good to.
It's out of commission.
Yeah, it's just out of commission for that battle, for that turn.
Okay.
If you roll a 6, then you take damage. So you would roll one more die here. And let me just roll that properly here. And that is the number of damage that ship takes. Now, when you look at each ship, they had that defense factor, if you recall.
The middle number, yes.
The middle number. So the Devonshire can only take 1 damage. If it takes any more than that, it's sunk. So this guy would be sunk.
Okay.
Right? But you look at something like the Scharnhorst can take 5 damage. So if it took 3 damage, then it can you put a damage marker on it for the equivalent amount of damage, right? And then you can continue if you want to, or you can try and escape, or whatever.
What if you roll multiple 6s on your attack?
I think it's, as far as I know, it's a hit. Well, actually, for each hit you get to
roll
you
damage?
get to roll damage. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that could add up potentially.
It could add up. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're getting lots of.
And can you retreat your ship back to port and retool it, heal it up, or no? Does that damage stay?
Yes. Yeah. So during the turn order thing I mentioned earlier, you can like when you have a ship that is damaged in port, okay, you have to leave him there. So you have to put him in the the ship has to stay there, but you can repair up to the number of points that are on that port's space. So Germany can repair up to 8 total damage among all the ships. If a ship is damaged, you can send it out to sea again. You don't have to fix it. You can send it out if you want to, but that that's how much you can repair. So France only can repair 3 damage per turn. Malta's only 2. So if things are going to gradually wear down because you just can't fix it fast enough.
Right.
So yeah. So
and of course you can leave your ships out at sea if you wish. Generally they have to return to port. There is a rule where German ships in the first 3 turns can try to stay out at sea if they're in the North Atlantic or South Atlantic. They can get oil or like tankers to refuel them, but they have to roll to succeed. Okay.
And it's pretty simple. It's just a 1 to 5 on turn 1, a 1 to 4 on turn 2, 1 to 3 on turn 3. So it's and then after that they can't do that. But basically after that they once the control has been established by one side, then you place a control flag. So let's say you won, the Devonshire won control of the North Sea, so you place that flag there, and then the Devonshire returns. So just to remind you who has control or had control of that.
That's how those flags work. Okay.
Yeah. So so the flags are just there more as a reminder. They get removed at a certain point in the turn. Now movement, you can always move adjacent to the space that they're in. So you'll see, Norway is adjacent to the Barents Sea, the North Sea, the Baltic Sea. So there's always that option of moving in there.
Yep.
If you want to go another space, okay, so if you want to kind of push the limits and move 2 spaces away from a port, then you have to roll for it. Okay.
Okay.
So first of all, you move all the ones that are just moving adjacent, and then you try for the other spaces with the remaining ships that you want to move, and you just need to roll a die less than the speed value of the ship. So something that's speed 7, no problem, automatically
Gets
ends
there.
up there.
Okay.
If it's speed 5, you need to roll a 5 or less in order to get there. Now, there's some really slow ships, like look at this guy's speed 3. He's going to be staying pretty close to home, probably. He's only got a 50-50 chance
Of moving
making
on.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you miss the roll, then the ship immediately returns to either its original port or a port bordering the second sea area where they were trying to get to. So that can be potentially useful. If I'm trying to get, let's say I move this slow ship to the South Atlantic and then to the Mediterranean, and then I miss my roll, I can move on to Malta. Or I can retreat back to my original.
Can you use
port.
the neutral land in the bottom left corner there?
Yes, sometimes if any ships that are disabled in the South Atlantic
Ocean,
basically are disabled, they have to go to this neutral port. And the neutral port, basically they must sail or they lose one point of POC, 1 point of control per ship per turn that's in there.
Oh.
So
They've got to get out of there. They can't stay.
Yeah, like if they sit there for a turn, then you lose victory points basically. So you can only, it can only be a temporary
haven
thing.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, the Axis player can place U-boats in any sea area, regardless of how far or anything like that. Only Russian and German ships can enter the Baltic Sea here, though. That's just something that you need to know. And you can't move into any other, opponent's, port or whatever. And then, that's the basic idea. The land space. That's kind of the combat. As I said, the U-boats. They have the ability to move anywhere. As it says.
Yep.
And they get like a sneak attack, basically. Now, the U-boats cannot control a sea zone on their own, but if they're in an area at the end of combat, it prevents the allied player from controlling it, regardless of the number of ships the allied player has there.
Oh, wow.
So that's a good way to neutralize the control, but they can get hit with the anti-submarine warfare rules that I detailed earlier.
Yeah.
And there's only one round of U-boat combat per sea area per turn. So there's only one, it's each side fires and then
U-boats are done.
U-boats are done, but they may end up staying there, and that's what's good because they can disable the Allied control. So it can be a good way of kind of canceling those
if they can survive.
If they can survive, yes. Yeah. And but as I said, it's kind of neat because they get one die, so it's not, it's still a 5 or 6 kind of thing, so it's not a sure thing.
Oh, and I'm guessing U-boats could get disabled too and have to go back to port.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, they can. Yes. Yeah. So they immediately go back to Germany if they get disabled, and each 6 though just sinks the U-boat.
It's
so
done.
There's no
way around it. Okay.
Yeah. So there's no way around that. And
so it may not be wise to blast them into places with 5 or 6 ships.
Yeah, probably not. But if there's not a huge presence of British ships, then it's a way at least of denying. They may get lucky with a hit, but it's a way of denying control as well to to the allies to score those points.
Okay.
So it's kind of a sneaky way of doing it. This game is not too complicated, but there's still enough, kind of things to think about, to talk about there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the land-based airstrikes, which are the airplanes which you noted earlier.
Yes.
Okay. So they can only use they can use the airstrike marker where indicated. So do you see the
airplanes, the Mediterranean Sea?
Yeah, do you see the white airplane?
Yep.
That's where they can be used. So you can attack France, you can attack the Mediterranean, you can attack Germany, and Italy as well. You can't see that right now. The Axis can attack in the Barents and Baltic Sea. So you see the red airplanes there.
Yes. Mediterranean as well. Yeah.
The Mediterranean and Leningrad, as well as Malta. So the ports there as well.
Okay.
So and they're just like a one strike kind of thing. So basically they get like a they have 3 planes on them, so it's kind of a reminder. They get 3 rolls, and it's the same idea. That you get to attack. They can't be launched against U-boats. They can be, you basically total up the factors that you have, and then you attack the number of ships, rolling 1 die per attack, and so it's just an extra, bonus. Now this is where aircraft carriers come in. Now aircraft carriers, if you look, they are going to be these guys. Let's see, where's the good aircraft carrier example? Okay, see the Graf Zeppelin here.
Yes.
Okay, do you see this little number 2?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So that is the airstrikes that it can launch in the battle. So it can, so just like those land-based airstrikes, you can actually get, it's like 2 rolls for the airstrikes that coming from the carrier.
Okay.
Right. And they can only be made, airstrikes with those can only be made against enemy ships in the same area or port as the attacking force. So you could so for example, a carrier in the Baltic Sea could not launch airstrikes against Leningrad, although Axis land-based air could.
Okay.
So that's the idea. So it's basically gives you some airstrikes, maybe take out a couple pieces before the main battle begins.
Now the ships aren't interested in any of the land spots. Like for example,
No.
Italy wouldn't necessarily bother
No.
with going into Malta.
No, you can't actually move into any of the other ports.
Land masses. Okay.
Yeah, it's just the ports become available to, sometimes they've got turn limits on them or whatever. Yeah. And then once you're engaged in that surface combat, then it's kind of like you pre-designate your targets. So you line up your ships and place them adjacent to the ships that you want to attack, and then the Axis ships rearranges their stuff in the same manner. So it's a little bit like Waterloo, except it's you each get a shot, and you can rearrange. So the Axis lines up their ships, the Allied player figures out who's firing on who, and then you rearrange. The Axis rearranges theirs and decides who the Axis is attacking, and then you apply the combat results.
Okay.
And then if you do decide that you want to escape, there is a couple things just about that. So the German ships, which are undamaged at the beginning of a surface combat round, may add 1 to the die roll of all shots taken against enemy ships or convoys. So they're a little bit better, a little more effective.
Oh wow!
So a 4 would become disable instead of a 5. 5s become hits, and 6 is just a hit as well.
Wow.
So
you have
only undamaged.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing is that carriers cannot be fired on in surface combat unless all other surface vessels in the area have also been fired upon, or the carrier itself joins in the battle. So do you see how the Graf Zeppelin down here has a 1 attack factor?
Yes.
So if the Graf Zeppelin joins in the battle with that attack factor, then they can be attacked. Otherwise, they can only be attacked if all the other ships in that space have been attacked, already fired upon.
Oh, so it could just
So
linger
they're a
in the
little
bag
bit
if it wants to.
protected. Yeah, they're a little more in the back, right?
Okay.
They're protected because those airstrikes are valuable.
Yes.
If you want to disengage, So you basically can disengage a ship, but once you disengage a ship, you must withdraw all the ships in the sea area at that time. So you can't just pull back part of them.
Oh, they all go.
Yeah, but you can disengage in separate groups and at different speeds. So some of them can, like the speed 6s or 7s can, escape. And the opposing player can pursue and force another round of surface combat. Anytime any withdrawing ships are moving at a speed equal to or less than the group of pursuing ships. Okay. So in other words, if the escaping ships are slower, then the ships can opposing ships can pursue them and keep the battle going.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Now, if both now this is the strategy of it. So if a player disengages, then he can't claim the points for the area. So let's just say, just as an example, let's say let's say this Italian ship has the Resolution on the run.
Yep.
And the Resolution is trying to escape, and Zara says, no, I want to keep fighting. The Zara's speed is higher than the Resolution, so the battle must continue until it's resolved.
It's okay.
But here's the thing, is that even if that continues until one of the ships is sunk, then neither player would get control of that area.
Okay. Now, so what if there was another ship? What if there was another ship with the Zarya?
Yeah, potentially, or in this case, if the Zara decides to say, you know what, you're free to go, then they would score that sea area.
Okay.
But like if it ends up being like a battle, like pursuit and battle, then you give up the POCs.
Right.
So it's a bit of you got a bit of a choice there. Like you can try and run the other guy down, but you may give up victory points if you if you do that. Okay. So it's kind of an interesting, kind of an interesting thing.
Dilemma that you're put into.
It is a dilemma. Yeah, exactly. So, and there's a little bit of how like you can have groups of ships based on the speed as well. So, you can group them according to speed and then try and escape, based on that.
Right. Okay.
Then there's just a couple of other things. So the convoys. Now, if you'll notice on the reinforcements here, you've got like Convoy 3C.
Yes.
There's only one convoy allowed in a given sea area at any one time. They all start from the U.S. and they may stay at sea at the end of the turn and move freely into the Barents Sea. So in other words, they would move. They kind of track across. So they go from North Atlantic to the Barents Sea on their second turn. And they can't go any faster. You can't speed through. They just don't. They're not allowed to.
Okay.
And the convoys which survive one turn in the Barents Sea may move to Russia at the end of the turn. And each convoy that makes it to Russia earns 3 POCs for the allied player.
Oh boy. Okay, so I'm definitely trying to block you out of that.
Now, if the convoy goes to the North Atlantic Ocean and survives, and then goes to England, then that earns 1 POC. So you kind of got a choice. If you go through the Barents Sea, you can get more victory points, or if you go across the North Atlantic, just get to England, then you only earn 1 victory point.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you turn it in and you get the victory points. If the convoy is disabled, it automatically goes back to the U.S. So even if it makes it to the Barents Sea and gets disabled, it has to go all the way back to start.
Oh no!
Yeah, and the convoy, and if it's in surface combat, it can only be fired if all other surface ships in the area have been damaged or disabled. So it's a last ditch.
Okay, attack effort.
Yeah, effort. Yes. So, but the Axis can attack the convoy in the first round of combat. But the designated attacking ships could fire only if every allied ship in the sea area has been already damaged, disabled, or sunk at the instant of attack. So it's kind of like, again, the convoys are kind of like the aircraft carriers. They're shielded.
I was going to say they seem similar. Yes.
Yes. So Yeah, so the convoy can only be fired at if it's kind of as a last resort.
Okay.
So there's there's a couple of minor navies. The Russian Navy, basically there's some ports like Leningrad here. So the Russian ships will start the game at Leningrad, can only be used in the Baltic Sea, and they can only sail during a turn if a 5 or 6 is rolled. So and each ship is rolled for separately. So they're not really that. You can't count on them.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The U.S. ships are released individually into the game permanently on a die roll of 6. So you roll each ship, and if you got to roll 6s in order to enter them into the game.
But then they're in.
Then they're in. Yes.
Okay.
The Italian ships cannot leave the Mediterranean, except for the 117s. Those guys you can move them into the South Atlantic, as long as the Mediterranean was not controlled by the Allies on the previous turn. And then once outside the Mediterranean, then those 117s, the cruisers, can attempt to venture to North Atlantic, France, or the neutral port.
Oh,
So
okay.
got,
do they have to roll? I guess they can go anywhere they want because they're 7s.
Yes, yeah, they can. Yeah.
Okay.
Now this is another weird thing about the Italians, is that unless the Axis player controls the Mediterranean for any 4 consecutive turns, the Italian fleet is subject to takeover at the beginning of turn 8. So you roll 1 die for each Italian ship, with the results. Basically, if you roll 1 to 2, it's Allied control. 3 to 4 is scuttled, or 5-6 is German control. So it's kind of, they can be taken over, basically.
Or rendered useless.
Yeah. Well, basically, or they're scuttled, they're sunk. So.
Oh, they're sunk. Yeah.
Yes. So that's at the beginning of turn 8, which is the last turn of the game. So the Axis has to control the Mediterranean.
So they may not be sticking around all that long, or at least at the very end.
Yes. I'm not sure what markers are used for that. I guess we'll just use a damage marker or something like that to track the number of consecutive turns. So as I mentioned, the German player can stay in the North Atlantic or South Atlantic with that oil tanker rule. They just have to roll, to see if they can survive out there. If they miss the roll, though, they have to go into the neutral port. So
they don't go home.
That could be a problem.
Okay.
So. And they must leave the turn after arrival or pay 1 POC per ship per turn that they stay.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
So, yeah. So, in a nutshell, and I know it's kind of just zipping through it as basically as fast as I was able to, but that's the game.
Yeah.
It sounds maybe more complicated when I am zipping through the rules, but all the rules, I think, you'll find will snap into place once
you start playing. And I'm very much looking forward to trying out our first game of War at Sea. This looks great.
Yes, excellent. All right, well, thanks so much for watching. I hope you got some value out of this how to play video. We're going to follow this up with a playthrough, so you can actually see the game in action, which probably will be an easier way to learn the game. But hopefully this gave you at least a general idea, so you know what to expect.
Yes.
Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found this useful.
And if you've ever played War at Sea or have some interesting stories about it, please comment below. Let us know. We'd love to hear them.
Yes, that sounds great. I'm NATO.
I'm Cax.
And this is
Legendary Tactics.